Has an interesting texture, but once you chew it a little bit, it tastes like avocado. So, hello, howdy, and welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden Homesteader. So, today I have a ton of unfinished projects that I want to get finished so I can put things away. These have been sitting on my counter since, I'm embarrassed to say, but since August. This one's from September. It is, as you can see, or I don't know if you can see, but they are cherry pits soaked in vinegar. They have been sitting here way too long. So, it is time to finish this project. I want to drain the juices out and then just get all of the pits in the garbage and the vinegar in a jar. I will also be dealing with some cilantro stems that I freeze dried. They need to be ground up so that I can use them. So I separate the leaves from the stems. The leaves are nice to put in salsas and chilies and things like that. But for cooking purposes, I don't want to use the leaves because they're pretty. So I just grind up the stems, which have the same flavor, but don't have the right texture. So I grind it up into a powder, and away we go. I can use that for other things where I want to save my leaves for something else, but I still want the flavor. So that's got to get done. The cumin that I harvested forever ago needs to be ground up so I can actually use it. I've got some chili peppers that I dried forever ago, probably in September, honestly. And they need to be ground up for either chili powder or chili flakes. So I will probably be doing both because it is a big container. And then I've also got some avocado. Avocado was on sale this week, so I bought a bunch. It is ripe, so I am going to get those prepared for the freeze dryer. I'm actually not going to turn it into guacamole this time. I just wanted to have some unadulterated avocado that I could just, if I want to put it in a chili or, in a salad or something like that. So I want to see how it freeze dries and how it reconstitutes. So we'll see. I think for a salad it's probably fine to just eat it powdered because, well, not powdered per se, but just as a freeze-dried chunk because it'll be crispy like a crouton. But then you'd have the avocado flavor. So I don't know. Okay. I think that is most of that. Oops. I don't know if there's any more juice in there. It still smells like cherry. I wonder if I could put more vinegar in and get more out of it. Okay. I think there's a little bit more in here. So this is literally cherry pits with white distilled vinegar. That's it. I didn't do anything special. I saw this on, whose channel was it? I think it was Melissa K. Norris was doing this. And it was really interesting because she did it. She says, oh, you can use it for like salad dressings and stuff like that, and then left it hanging. So I'm going to try to figure out how to use this, and I'll get back to you because I was left hanging. Okay, let me see. I got just shy of 2 cups. I think I'm at 1.5 cups. Nope, I'm at 1 2/3 cups. So I am going to, I don't know if this one, yeah, I'm just going to throw this in the garbage. Nothing wrong with the jar. I'm going to give it a quick rinse, and then I'm going to put that in the jar. Okay, I'm going to put it back in the jar. I just gave it a quick rinse. There's no need to mess up another jar. These jars, this particular jar, I actually got at a, not a Goodwill, but it's like a Goodwill, and I think it's a canning jar. It fits the correct size lid, but it's a different size and shape, and I'm not 100% sure it's a real canning jar, like if it could handle the pressure or the processing. So that was my mistake, so I've been using it for other things, and there we go. Okay, well, it's one project done. I'm going to get the lid cleaned up, and I can put this in my pantry. I got to get labels as well. But all the rest of this stuff can now go in the garbage and get cleaned and be off of my countertops. Okay, that's one project down. I still have a bunch to go. So let me get this out of the way, give this a wipe, and on to the next project. Okay, my next project is the cumin. Let's get this over and done with. It should go pretty quick. This is a coffee mill, but I only use it for spices. Don't actually drink coffee. So this is for my spices. I grind all kinds of things in here. So I actually do, if I need flax meal, I'll grind it in here as well. So let's get this over and done with, because I have been dying to use this, and it's just been sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting. So let's get this done. There we go. All ready to go. So this is just going to go in with my other... Oh, it's interesting. It's a different color. I'm going to put this on the lid first. See if I can get that in there without making a mess. There we go. Okay. So next time I make chili or tacos or any of those, I guess if I make Indian, that uses cumin as well. So, there we go. That is done. This can get cleaned up again. This can get put away, finally. And that is another thing off my counter. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to get out my little food processor and get this processed as well. Okay. My itty bitty tiny little food processor. Okay. So like I literally just pick the stems off. A few leaves get stuck in there, but it's literally just stems. So let's get that in there. And it'll take up a lot less space. These were all things that were sitting on my counter. You probably saw some of them sitting beside my knife block in some of the videos. So I had a major water catastrophe this morning where I spilled my water everywhere, and I decided it was just time to get all of the extraneous stuff off my counter. So this counter is now a whole lot cleaner. It does still have a couple of things on it that I need to work on, like eating the big pile of ramen noodles that we bought a while back. Oh, it smells like cilantro. It smells so good. Okay, so get this in a jar again. And that is another project done. Okay. Oop. Ooh, fluffy. Okay. That's that. Gotta get that labeled up as well. Although, you know, if I open it up, I can smell what it is. Get this cleaned up. And I'm going to do a quick cleanup. Then I'm going to get the avocados going, processing, so I can get those in the freezer. Hopefully I can show you what those look like before this video goes live and see how it is. But I will definitely try to show you that at some point, whether it's this video or not. So, cleanup time. Okay, and on to the pile of avocado. I want to freeze dry these. I have done them in the past as guacamole, which is a really great way to save it because here I have a little bit. It stays fresh on the counter, green, for as long as you want. But I wanted to do some as chunks. So what I'm going to do is I've got a bowl with a liter of water, and I'm going to put in a 1/4 cup of lemon juice to prevent browning. So I have this bowl here, it's got lemon juice in it, it's got a liter of water, 1/4 cup of lemon juice. I've got a strainer in here because I don't want to handle the delicate avocado too much. So let's see if these are actually ripe or did they get overripe. Such a fine line. Well, that's not too bad. So, get the pit out. I flick it off with my thumb, that way I'm not trying to pull against a blade. So I'm going to just do small pieces. That's probably good enough. And then just use the spoon, pop it straight out into the bowl. I don't want them soaking for a long time. I'm going to just get them moved around a little bit and then drain them and put them on the trays. There we go. 1 down, 11 to go. Not even 1 down, that was half of one. So my only concern with some of these is how will it rehydrate? Because, you know, if the chunks are too big, is it going to be hard for the water to get in to the center? So I might try doing, so these are larger chunks, there are some smaller chunks. So I might separate them out and then try to do smaller ones after that, because I think the smaller ones will work better, even though the bigger ones take less time to deal with. Ooh, that's a big pit. There you go. Alright, so maybe what we'll do this time is get it out and then cut it into more uniform cubes. This will require a little more handling, but maybe it will be a little bit better. Definitely slippery. Tastes good. Yeah, so just break those apart so they can get all covered in lime juice or lemon juice. You can see, so that was definitely messier, but they are a lot more uniform in size. So maybe that is just the way to go, unfortunately. There are still some bigger pieces in here compared to some of these smaller pieces, so I guess we will see. That drained. Yeah, look at the size and pits. Like, holy cow, that's quite a discrepancy. Okay, so that is 6 on this one tray. I feel like that is a decent number. I can get them to spread out a little bit more, make sure they're not too stuck to each other. I will get a lid on this and get this in the freezer. I like to pre-freeze my stuff because my freezer's already cold, and that way the freeze dryer doesn't have to work quite so hard. So that will go in the freezer, and then I got 6 more to process. I will show you how they look after they come out of the freeze dryer. I will probably take a couple of each size and see how each one how each one rehydrates. So I think the bigger ones will have a harder time than the smaller ones, but I guess we'll see. But I got 6 more to process. So it's only gonna be 2 of my 4 trays. So I will figure something else out to put on the other trays just so that I'm running a full load. Okay, I am messing up all the appliances today. Not quite sure how to do this. This one feels squishy. Some of these may not have been fully dried. Actually, they might have just been sitting at room temperature for too long. Okay, so I think I've got different kinds in here. So some of them are probably spicier than others. They're also kind of dusty from sitting around. So I need to get the tops off. Ugh. Okay, well, I guess that's one way to do it. And I don't know if it's worth trying to separate them or not. Don't think it matters if the seeds are in or not, because chili flakes have seeds in them. Boy, those are not easy to get off. Okay, well, I don't know how many chili flakes I actually need. But it might be worth going through and doing the whole thing because it'll take up less space. So what are your unfinished projects that are just sitting there staring at you, waiting, mocking you? These are mine. This container has been sitting on my counter since September. It's just been sitting there. It's a gallon of peppers waiting. So today's the day. Long overdue. Okay, I'll get these going, see how this does, because I might need to use the little food processor. Okay, apparently blitzing was the way to go. I'm not going to open this for a few seconds, just in case it poofs up. Okay, let's see if we can get the dust down. Okay. And I made a mess. Surprise, surprise. Some of these things are just messy. Okay, let me see. How was that? Still has a few. Woo! Still has a few big pieces in there. So, woo! Yeah, make sure you let that sit a little longer. Okay, well, that's how it looks. There's still some big pieces in there, so I'm not sure if it's worth putting this in another container and putting it in the spice mill, which I think would be too fine, or just blitzing it a few more times. So, I might try blitzing it a few more times and see where we're at. And then, if I gotta pull out the food processor, I will have to go clean that up and pull it out. Okay. Just need a better food processor. Need a better blender too, but I'm gonna save up. It just takes a while to save up for things. Okay, well that looks a lot better. So, just gotta keep blitzing until it's the right texture. So, I need a container to put these in. Okay, I'm going for overkill. We're going to put it in a quart size one, and if it is truly too many, I will downgrade it. But we will see. So, let's get this in. My funnel is already dirty, so just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay. So, some of it does get stuck around the blades, so I don't know if I can get that off. I think I'll just get it off at the end. So, I'm going to just go through and get this done. So, I'm going to speed this up. You guys can watch this go in fast time. I think I'm going to cut the tops off too. Haha! Yes, cut your tops off. There we go. That is a lot easier. I bet you I could save some of these and use it to make like an enchilada sauce, but it just takes up so much space. Okay, I am finished. So, this whole container, which was slightly heaped, made 1 quart of chili flakes. So, I can grind these up and make chili powder if I really want to, or I could just put them in as is. So that turned out really well. It made quite a mess. I also learned, don't do this inside if you can avoid it, especially if you are sensitive to chili flake powder. Whew! Boy, I have a tickle in my throat now. I had to blow my nose. I think I touched my nose. Oh crap, my nose is burning a little bit. Well, now I know they're hot peppers. They're not super spicy though. It's not a bad burn. I am almost done with the project. So obviously the avocado, that's going to take some time to freeze and then freeze dry. So I don't know if I'll be able to show you in this video, but got some freeze-dried cheese that we're just not eating. It was kind of an odd texture, so I thought, well, I could powder that up and I could put that in stuff. You know, cheese powder. Everyone can use cheese powder. Heck, I could even just put that on popcorn. So I'm going to powder that up and get that going, and then I have a really big mess to clean up. In fact, I got to clean up something because I need either the blender or the food processor to blend this. So, cleanup mode for a few minutes. Okay, I am moving on to the cheese. I pulled out the little food processor. It has had a chance to be washed and dried. So, try about half of it. Let's see. So this is actually Velveeta, and these are, it's like string cheese that I just cut up. So, I'm going to powder it all up together, and I will find another use for it. Ooh, smells good. I always keep a flat on my jar. I put it on upside down so the ring doesn't stick. Sometimes it'll stick. And it also tells me that this jar is clean. I always use a used lid upside down so that I know it's a used lid. But when I need it, I just flip it the other way and I just use it for whatever it needs to be used for. Now, my funnel is still dirty. It's actually on the rack drying, so if you're working with freeze-dried stuff, you want to make sure everything is super dry, and I don't feel like drying more things. So, something funny, we only run our dishwasher about once every 3 days or so, because it takes us about that long to fill it up. I can't tell if it's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies or what. You know how it's like, oh, I don't want to put this in the dishwasher because we don't wash our dishes we don't run it very often, so I better wash it. That way I always have it. So there's a lot of things that I don't put in the dishwasher because I've only got one of, and I want to make sure it's available for the next time I need it. So there's certain mixing bowls I use all the time, measuring spoons or cups, that just don't make it in. And I also don't put any plastic stuff in or knives or wooden things because I have learned the dishwasher will just destroy them. So it's funny, we really don't put very much in our dishwasher, so it takes us 3 days to fill it up. Okay, so now I have some nice cheese powder I could use in other dishes because it just wasn't getting eaten as chunks. I'll tell you though, we got, I think it was Colby. We got some Colby on sale, and I did the same thing. I freeze-dried it in cubes. It was so good. But this one, it wasn't quite as good. I don't know. It's like the different cheeses obviously have different flavors, and when it was freeze-dried, Velveeta just didn't work for us as well as the Colby did. Freeze-dried cheese shreds, so if you shred your cheese and freeze-dry it, that works pretty well, but it seems to work better if you're using it like in a casserole that's got a lot of liquid in it that can help the cheese rehydrate. So, just for your information. Okay, so that is that. This is actually a nicer lid. I'm going to use that one instead. So all this can get cleaned up again. So I am nearing the end of all of my little to-dos that have been kind of hanging over my head and driving me nuts. But this is just more stuff that I can get off the counter. This is actually clean. I didn't use it. But that's one counter cleaned off. I still have 2 more and the kitchen table, because that's where everything accumulates. So I still have work to do. And to wrap up this video and to finish off with the avocado, for 12 avocado, so it was 6 per tray, I got 2 full quarts and a pint. So there was a little browning, as I will show you. These are not vacuum sealed, I just threw them in the jars. But you can see a little bit of browning did occur. I don't know how much of that was my avocados were slightly too ripe, or if it was the lime juice, I just didn't get full coverage. I might try using Fruit Fresh next time just to see how that does, but they're all pretty good. Has an interesting texture, but once you chew it a little bit, it tastes like avocado. So, I mean, I could see this being good in a salad. You could, in theory, put this in a mortar and pestle and just roughly pound it and then just turn it into guacamole. I could totally see doing that. Some of these bigger pieces, I don't know how well they would rehydrate if you left them whole, but I might have to try making a chicken chili and just eating some of this on it. I think I'm just going to throw some in my salad as is, just kind of like a crouton. It took about 17.5 hours to do the avocado. So obviously your mileage may vary. Our machine was complaining that the room was a little warm and processing time may take longer than normal. We get that error all the time. It's not really an error, but we get that message all the time. So, it is what it is. I wanted to come back and revisit the freeze-dried avocado because I found that the whole avocado, I did try using it as croutons actually. I mentioned that. I did actually use it. I still actually found the texture a little off-putting. That's just me personally. I mean, maybe some people enjoy having that texture. It's really hard to describe because avocado is oily, and so it wasn't crispy. Like, you know, when you freeze dry an apple, it's really crispy because you remove all the water, there's nothing left but fiber and cellular structure. This has a lot of oil in it, so it didn't have that nice crisp crunch to it that I kind of expected. So this has been soaking for 5 minutes. I don't think all of it has completely rehydrated, but I'm going to try a piece and see. Okay, well it's still a little, I won't say crunchy because it's not really crunchy, but it's still firm in the middle. It tastes fine, although I did get a little browning. It tastes fine. So what I wanted to do was, I am sure this could just be mashed up and put on avocado toast or whatever you do with mashed avocado. I would continue to freeze dry it in this form if I didn't have everything I needed to make guacamole. But what I would like to do is mash it up and turn it into guacamole and see how it turns out. So this is going to be a little firm in the center still. Yeah, that's still very firm in the center. I think part of it is that the pieces were rather big. So what I might do is I'm going to put in a little bit of this water. This is just warm tap water. That's all it is. And I'm going to start putting in, I'm just going to make a really small batch of guac because I'm going to have a salad with lunch and I think this will just go well with it. These are hot peppers. These are onions. I actually really suggest that if you're going to freeze dry or dehydrate things, do them in different forms. So I had some small onion pieces that I was using to throw in just like, you know, homemade guac or other recipes that I needed just little pieces for, and I ran out. So I feel like the little pieces were the way to go. I'm going to add just a small little splash of water just for these things. So let's get that going. Some lime juice. I'm just making a basic guacamole. And some cilantro. This is freeze-dried cilantro. It's a great way to go. It might be a little bit more than I needed. So these are just the leaves. I pull out the stems, and as you've seen previously, I grind those up and just put them in when I need powder. So let's see how this is going. See if we can get some of this to mash up now. Okay, well that one, the smaller ones are mostly hydrated. Okay, that one kind of broke apart a little bit. So they are still firm on the inside, but they are mashing a little bit. So this is just going to be a work in progress. This is probably better either letting it rehydrate a lot more, doing smaller pieces, which would also be a good idea, or crushing them up like in a food processor or blender before rehydrating. Okay. I do have a couple of larger pieces that just need to be worked on. Okay. I'm going to work on this for a few minutes. I will get back to you and let you know how this turns out. It's probably just going to be keep adding a little bit of water to get it all hydrated again. Yeah, I would definitely put this in a food processor and just wouldn't completely powder it, but I would get it close because my fork ain't cutting it. Okay, so all in all, this has had about 10 minutes of total rehydration time. So yes, definitely chunk it up smaller, but I mean, I think it should turn out just fine. There's probably going to be little crunchy bits because I didn't chunk mine finer. This is probably the limit of the size I would do. I don't know if you can see how big that is, because that would rehydrate. But since I had to mash it down from a bigger piece, this probably isn't fully... It was close. It was a very small batch. I think I went slightly overboard with the salt. Everything else is great. So, this is a really good way of preserving avocado if you just have so many of them and you just want to preserve it fast. You don't want to worry about making guacamole. I would actually mash it and put it on the trays after that, because you can kind of break up the pieces and leave it, you know, in bigger mashed chunks, and you'd have a little bit more texture because you'd have different sizes when you mash. So that's what I would try next time. But this is still, I thought this was good. This turned out really good. This is a better way to use it, obviously. Yeah, smaller chunks, or pre-mash it before freeze drying. But if you just want to do the big cubes, I would sort of break them up first in a food processor, mortar and pestle, something, rolling pin in a bag. Break it up first, then rehydrate it. That's a great way to preserve your avocado. So I will get back to the rest of the video, but I just wanted to revisit this. This has been a couple days after I filmed that video, and I didn't want to leave it hanging like that because it was okay, and I did say I was going to try putting in my salad as croutons, which I thought was okay as well, but it wasn't the greatest. So I just wanted you to know that if something doesn't quite turn out the way you think it does, there are other ways to use it. So there were other ways of using this, and this is a great way of preserving it. If I were to mash it, I would probably put in some citric acid and a little lime juice just to make sure it doesn't turn brown, but otherwise, it didn't really turn that brown. So I hope you found this video useful. You know, I mean, if you're interested in freeze-drying things, this is good information. At least it gives you an idea of how long-ish it could take, and we'll just go from there. So I'll put up a couple of other videos at the end of this one that you might like. Thank you for joining me on these little projects that needed to get done, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.